Good morning everybody and welcome back to the LEGO Legend of Zelda Custom Set Showcase Wave 4, where today, as promised, we're taking a look at the big one. This is Z067 with 4,854 pieces. You saw it in the thumbnail and clicked on it for a reason. It's one of our biggest custom sets here on the channel. This is the 18 Plus Temple of Time, as you can see here in all of its Ocarina of Time glory. However, just like the Deku Tree, although I promise I came up with this idea before that set was leaked and revealed, this model can also turn into the Breath of the Wild version. And unlike the Deku Tree, you don't have to rebuild it from scratch to achieve this. You just have to change out some parts, and I'm pretty pleased with how this mechanism turned out, so we'll talk through it as we go today, as well as show you all the architectural details and 6 minifigures, because this is set Z067, the Temple of Time, for ages 18 and up, with 4,854 pieces, retailing for £399.99 Great British Pounds, making it one of the most expensive sets that I've ever designed, with 6 minifigures all based off Ocarina of Time. And as you can see on the box, we've got a nice little logo, all of our characters, and then the temple in its ocarina form. No art for the Breath of the Wild version, see it as more of an accessory. Let's read our description and then start opening up that box. Build a landmark to stand the test of time with the all-new LEGO Legend of Zelda Temple of Time Collector's Edition. Build the iconic structure complete with architectural details and accurate game features. Model is over 45 centimeters long and 60 centimeters high, and switch between displaying the Ocarina Temple and Breath of the Wild ruins with easily removable sections to personalize your build. Add the Doors of Time, Spiritual Stone and Gossip Stone to complete the look of an ultimate Zelda display piece. And that gives us a hint as to some of the details you're going to be seeing today, and I'm sure you've got many questions about why I chose to combine them and so on. But opening up the box, we can see we get 44 numbered bags and one giant instruction manual, which if we open up, we see that bags 1 to 4 build the sort of ground floor and the footprint of the temple, along with giving you your Child Link figure. Bags 5 to 9 start on the front wall, noticeably ignoring one of the left-hand towers, which is obviously missing in the Breath of the Wild version. Bags 10 to 12 give us Raru and continue the front. You can see here now that we're getting up to the second level of height. And bags 13 to 18 finish that right hand side, which, unlike the Breath of the Wild version, is actually complete here. You've got all 3 windows completely done, and that was off like a 5 bag segment, which is quite a lot. Next up, bags 19 to 22 gives us your adult Zelda from Ocarina of Time and builds the framing for the left hand side of the wall. Notice the big missing gap. Bags 23 to 25 sort of seal it all together and build the back of the temple. They also give us our Impa figure. And bags 26 to 29 do the 2 turrets as well as the back roofing element. Bag 30 and 31 are dedicated to the orange roof with the tiles. Bags 32 to 34 build the left tower, which is detachable, part of the conversion, and give us Ganondorf. And bag 35 to 37 build this small little wall segment, which again is removable. Bag 38 gives us some of the dirt, and bag 39 gives us some more of the dirt. Bag 40 builds the Ocarina of Time inserts as well as the Ocarina of Time Adult Link. And bag 41 and 42 continue with those inserts, specifically building the columns that are needed for the inside of the Ocarina version. And bag 43 gives us the detachable roof panels to turn the damaged roof into the full roof, as well as the benches here and pews and 2 windows. And then bag 44 gives us the statues and of course all those leaf pieces which you're going to need to attach to a wall. So it's a smaller bag at the end, but all the leaf pieces to make the temple look decayed. So here you can see the 2 versions of the temple, and it's pretty clear that there are some stark differences between them. All of these sections are removable, so while the transformation isn't like an all-in-one, it would take maybe 10 minutes to attach all the elements, remove all the sections. There's no parts forming here, meaning that everything can be just attached and detached. There's no need to twizzle stuff around or do anything else. Just take off what you need and put the interior that you want in here. And actually this temple has 3 versions. We have the Breath of the Wild Decayed version, the Ocarina of Time version, and I've also included the pews and goddess statues to make this the pre-Calamity Breath of the Wild version. So if you have a complete roof, complete walls, you can put the pews in as seen in Age of Calamity. So that's another option for you. Now, obviously these temples actually look pretty different in games, not to mention then neither of them are 3 windows long. They're both about 5 windows long, and this is just shortened to keep this part count in control. Obviously 4,800 parts is already quite a lot, so shrinking that down from 5 windows to 3 allows me to keep a large and grand scale without sacrificing much of the details, which means that some things are compressed. Both towers are here, and the Breath of the Wild dark orange roof colour scheme has been kept to keep it more in line with that version, mainly because in Ocarina of Time 3D and Ocarina of Time on the N64, there are some differences between the designs, and it's definitely clear that there's a higher resolution. Not to mention that the colour of the temple is debatable, and in the Ocarina of Time version, you have the big domed roof above the Master Sword pedestal. Now, these are all aspects that I chose to sort of condense or simplify in order to make this possible, but also because on the N64 you really can't tell what's going on, it felt like a normal compromise, and there are more important details to transfer across. I do wish I could have kept the round tower at the back, but it just proved too difficult and obstructed your internal views. However, the dramatic changes are really on the inside. As you can see currently in the Breath of the Wild version, you've got holes in the roof, you've got vines everywhere, and most of the floor is covered with these tan and green plates with loads of debris in them. This is actually something we see in the temple, where you can actually see the clear design as seen in Age of Calamity, and is very similar to the black and white, although here white and grey design that you would see in the Ocarina of Time temple, but obviously missing, well, covered up by bits of grass and pots and stuff. The other key thing to point out is in this Breath of the Wild interior, you'll notice that where are all the white walls? The inside of a Temple of Time in Ocarina of Time is white, and trust me, we will get to that. You may have seen them earlier, but we'll be adding those white walls in as well, and it does transform the space. So, the conversion is kind of flawed in one regard, but also it's a nice compromise that sort of gets the best of both worlds, because does anyone really want to display the old Ocarina of Time temple in its like low poly glory? I feel the Breath of the Wild one is the sleeker design, and then we've just sort of brought the Ocarina of Time love to the exterior and interior, and to be honest, I don't see a problem with that. So let's take a closer look now, show you all the details up close, which you've been seeing on your screen, but talk through them, and then at the end we'll take a look at the figures. So, let's start through the Breath of the Wild version, and we will slowly convert it to the Ocarina of Time version as we go through. So the biggest thing that stands out about this one is that the entire left side is wrecked. One of the two towers is missing, which I'll talk you through how we attach that on later. You've got vines dripping down through this opening, and you, as mentioned earlier, you can see the tufts of grass using a new fern element, a Silent Princess build, and also even some dark orange bow elements to represent tiles falling off the roof. We've also got a couple of slopes to represent rocks on the inside there, but yeah, massive hole that's supported across the bridge, and then of course removable sections from the roof. Around the front we also have some extra details which were added in this version, such as some vines going up the right hand side, very minimal, obscuring some of the architectural details but not too many. I'll talk about the actual detail work that's been put on the temple when we look at it in its complete form, but even on the other side of the roof there's another small hole, building us to 3 in total, as well as some more space for leaves. The roof, as I mentioned, follows the colour of the Breath of the Wild version of the tree. Those holes actually add quite a lot of character, to be honest, and allow you to see inside, but of course the roof is removable. And now it's time to start thinking about how we add sections on. You'll notice that where removable sections for the towers are, the tower and the hole, there's lots of tiles, meaning that for the majority of it you just kind of plop the tower onto the top here. There's about 5 studs over at the back which allow it to be sit securely, and it also locks in at the top. The same is true with the gap. You'll notice most of it's tiled off, but with 2 or 3 studs at the bottom, and this green jumper here, which is also how it attaches and makes the wall uneven. Let's talk about that window design briefly though, because it's a pretty key part of the build. You'll notice that it's largely built using bars and makes great use of hot dogs in black, Technic connectors, and animal tails to create these shapes. Most of them are actually attached into bricks at the side of the wall, which are just covered up by this rung of tiles which all go around the outside, and it creates a really nice effect. There's actually glass in these windows, which is something I really wanted to make sure I included. So on the back of this 2 brick thick wall is actually rail plates, which have been used before in sets to guide the glass panes in. So while the glass panes aren't in frames on these, they actually slot in sideways into a rail plate's thin gap, and then just stack up on top of each other, and it's 4 per window. The smaller windows around the front are more simple. They actually are using window frames just so that I didn't have to build rail plates into these smaller locations, and mostly just use bars and hot dogs, but also the superhero poser piece in black to recreate some of the shapes but in a simpler level. And to be honest, the black lines of the frames behind actually help there. Differently, at the very back of the temple, behind the altar, you'll notice that they don't have glass in them, but they use the same design as the front. And that's just a limitation of working on the hinge plates and trying to make things look nice on the inside. Speaking of inside, how do you get in? Well, we've got this big doorway entrance here, which has a lot of snot techniques to represent the stacking of almost like masonry, like high filigree work that slants backwards into a door, and no doors are present because it's seen on neither of the versions of the temple. There are no doors on this one. Of course, above the door we also have a Triforce symbol, as well as making great use of these Minecraft pieces here just for a little bit of like arch details. Further up the temple still, we have the main window here. This is another removable section that we'll come back to turn between the Ocarina and Breath of the Wild version, because it's a key difference between the two. And off on the arches to the side, you've got some more windows, which these ones again are hollow and are using bars similar to the Tower of Orthanc technique to achieve the right look here. The temple then starts to kind of slope inwards up to the bit at the top, which of course we all know from Breath of the Wild is where you meet the old man and get the treasure chest. There would be a treasure chest included up here, even though it's not present in this render. Then the model goes up into the dark orange slopes, and there is no Korok included at the top, unfortunately. Feels like a missed opportunity, chance to be angry at the designer maybe. And then that goes straight up into a spire, which your Link minifigure could grab onto. Actually, why not bring that up right now? There are no Breath of the Wild figures or representation in here. You know, some sets are disappointing, and that's just part of it. Think of it like the controversy surrounding the direct-to-consumer Sanctum Sanctorum, because when that launched, it only had a couple of figures, and there felt like there were definitely missed opportunities there for more upgrades. 2 of the figures here are reuses of Links that have appeared in other sets. The other 4 are new, but there's missing opportunities like a Breath of the Wild Link, a Child Zelda from Ocarina of Time, and a Breath of the Wild Korok. It just is the way it is, and with a model this large, the figure budget is just not going to spread around as much. While we're on the topic, another inclusion I would have liked to make if this model had come in under budget, would have been the platform that you walk up to outside Ocarina of Time's temple, so where the 4 gossip stones are there. We do actually have the hint stone, I should call it, but it is basically just a gossip stone in here, in the interior of the model, but that is for later. Also, Temple of Time. Weird. LEGO has a policy of not depicting religious buildings, and until recently I would have agreed with you. I was going to do this set anyway just because it's an iconic location and just give myself the excuse of it's a fictional temple and not to any real world religion. However, then LEGO came out with Notre Dame, so I have no guilt anymore. It is what it is. It's an iconic location. To be honest, I don't see this one ever getting made. If I'm judging by LEGO standards, I think they'll ignore this one, but that's just my thoughts. Either way, here it is. Look around the back quickly at the bottom end of the roof. We've got some plate work with another Triforce symbol here, and just underneath is the sort of roof canopy that features on the Breath of the Wild version. This is where the octagonal tower should sort of go up to, but that's not here, and this sort of goes over the sticky out bit, which is kind of where the altar is. But to be honest, we've seen enough of these interior decorations now. Let's take another back look on the inside, because I want to show you, well, what we've got firstly and how to convert it between the 3 versions, and try and bear with me here because it's a bit of a process. Currently on the inside we have the Breath of the Wild version, but you can definitely see the potential despite all the dirt over the floor. So let's start taking through this process as we go. First up, the altar at the far end. Currently we've got the goddess statue, which is actually the same build from Freeing Nadra at Z061, which is also a wave 4 set, but that was like a year and a half ago. It's crazy that progress has been so slow on this wave. And also the 2 smaller goddess statues here, so you can get your heart containers, wonderful. You've also got these 2 chain fences, which are more so associated with the Age of Calamity, like pre-Calamity version, so leave those on and off as you will. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to turn this into the pre-Calamity version, which means firstly take all the leaves off the roof, get them into a big pile and take them out of there. Also, we're going to take the dirt off the floor, which leaves us with this completely clean white and grey tiles, and just leaves a couple of black studs on the floor ready to attach some different things. Now that those are out of the way, time to fix the roof. So it's just an easy removable section, and you can see underneath we've got some attachment points and how it's built, and then we're just going to slot them in. They're on these yellow Technic pins and they just slide straight in there, completely completing the look. We've used wedge plates that line up perfectly, 3 holes filled, and you've got a perfect roof to add back onto the top. Now it's time to add the wall segments, and these wall segments have been rounded off with 1x4 bow bricks, and this allows them to slide more easily in and out, and you can sort of just grip it by the snot work on the outside to kind of slide it and slot it into its hole. And that completes the wall, and the tower section actually just slots on and attaches to those 4 or so studs. Now that the actual building is complete, we're going to add the pre-Calamity details, which mostly revolves around keeping the goddess statue on the pedestal and adding this. We have 8 pews and a 3x3 tile here, and when we add this 3x3 tile to the middle, that will be printed with the Triforce Triforce and with the 3 goddesses symbols for Feor, Nid, Din and Nehru. That goes on the middle there, which is actually a detail that's there in game. It's not just there to cover up the black studs which we need for something else later. It is an actual detail that's there, it's just raised up. And then the 8 pews to actually turn this into basically a working chapel. So this is sort of a bonus. It didn't take too many parts to do, and we were like halfway there anyway. And this is exactly how it's seen in, I believe it's mission 18 of Age of Calamity, where you go and rescue the king from the Great Plateau, and you see all the benches in there and the goddess statue and all the chains. The only thing that's missing here is like the red rug that goes down the middle, but like that's just a small detail. We don't have to worry about that. And I think it looks really cool when it's all set up like that. If we take a look through the door, it's all set up for this money angle. Doesn't that look great? I'm really, really happy with that. And I have to draw your attention to that shadow. Well done, Studio's rendering engine, for causing light to cast through and make quite a symbolic shot there. I really love how the goddess's shape is reflecting off the floor there. It really shows her presence, you know? That's kind of cinematic. Anyway, we're not here to look at that. We're here to look at the interior details. We actually haven't talked about the interior rules. I've replicated the columns, which are actually quite a complicated design, using some studs not on top techniques. Once again, making great use of the 1x4 bow brick, a piece that I didn't think was going to be useful but probably saved me in this build, and that is mounted sideways on top of the existing 2x2 bow, with more coming off the side to create this, I want to call it like a plus shaped column, where it kind of bubbles out at the 4 corners and then has a rounded shape through the middle. And we've recreated those, about 3 or 4 columns all the way down to the end. And actually I tried to make the interior of these windows look as nice as possible. It was a little tricky down the bottom where the statue is, but even on the sides you can sort of see that I've tried to keep things flush. We've got as minimal tiles as possible on the rail plates that keep the windows in, and just beneath them we have a completely clear base where the snot work with the dark grey outlines is, you know what I'm talking about, on the outside, so completely clear there. And just above them we have a rail plate and some 2 cheese slopes in dark bluish grey, and then a white 1x8 tile which would be printed with some filigree patterns to represent details that are actually there on the Breath of the Wild church. Not so much on the Ocarina version, but they are there. So this is the Age of Calamity version. It's fairly similar to the Breath of the Wild version, just taking all that dirt and fixing up the roofs and walls. So here we have the pre-Calamity one. It's kind of a nice bonus, not really necessary, but we're here for the big conversion, so let's get ready for the Ocarina of Time version, and that begins by grabbing all these parts here. We have 2 large wall segments, which you may think might be stupid right now. Why bother wasting the parts on them? But trust me on this, we'll get there in a second. We also have Gate and Door of Time, Master Sword Pedestal, the Prelude of Light Warp Point, and a Gossip Sheikah Stone, whatever you want to call it. And we also have this wall segment here which actually attaches in to the main rose window for the Ocarina of Time temple. On the Breath of the Wild version it is these like 3 slits, and all you have to do is pull that out, and then we can immediately slide this new one in to change over the front there, and it definitely looks much better for it. It's more recognizable as the Ocarina Temple. But that's all the exterior details because we fixed up the roofs. So let's move on to the Gossip Stone, or the Hint Stone from Ocarina of Time 3D. There are 2 studs over on the left wall where the gap is, where the wall usually pulls away, and you can see here that he just slots in there. And the reason I'm showing this first is because he's about to get really, really hidden. We've got the details sort of represented on his face, and there is a kind of space for Link to stick his head into, although you're never going to be able to do that because bump, it is hidden by these pillars, which are the much more important detail, and it keeps that stone sort of as more of an Easter egg really, although it is accessible if you remove the wall panel. So we've attached these walls here, and these are to represent the sort of, I don't know, mezzanine columns that kind of exist in the middle of the Ocarina of Time temple. You can walk freely underneath on the tiled floors, however there are these arches up above which kind of look like a mezzanine walkway, and these have been replicated here using the large prefab Lego elements. And the reason I chose these is because of the filigree that goes around the door. It just feels more ornate, and those are all layered with glass. No mezzanine upstairs because you'd never be able to access it, but these are just attached to these large Technic columns which have a really nice texture to them, and there are 4 of these on each side, and it really does transform the interior, as you'll see in a minute, and it changes it from being this like big grey block to having all these white details, which is really, really cool. So 2 of those go in, and we've done the rose window on the outside. So now it's time to add the rest of the interior details, starting with the warp panel and then the pedestal of time. The warp panel sits where we had that Triforce design on the middle there, sits halfway down, and of course would have the printed design as in game, as in if you've played the Prelude of White Light and you warp across. And then at the back we've removed the 3 goddess statues and the chain, chains, which reveal some more jumper studs for the pedestal of time, which just sits in here with the Master Sword hilt. No sword included in the set, just the hilt. And then of course we've added up some tiles where we can easily attach the rest of them. So the ramp here is actually hollow with 3 spiritual stones. That actually sits over the stairs, and we have some more to put the Gate of Time in, and then the white wall just sits over the top. Gate of Time, Door of Time even printed, of course, has the symbol on it, and then there's a Triforce above it on the white wall. And adding in this extra white wall, again, completely changes it, makes it look more recognisable, because obviously you can't see through to the back windows straight away in the Ocarina Temple, at least not until the Door of Time is open. But also there's a small gap there, so the Door of Time can actually be popped out and removed, so that when you look through the middle you can still get a straight shot of the Master Sword. I'll show you that in a second. Yeah, so adding all this white actually does completely change things. You might think it still looks a little bit messy, specifically around the top or around the outsides, but actually it doesn't look too bad, because when you look at it straight on, it does completely change the shape, and it looks like perfect. It's like a white temple now, which is exactly as it should be in Ocarina of Time. You wouldn't even really know that you were in a Breath of the Wild shell, and that was something that I really wanted to bring to this model, something different and special that I thought I could challenge it. Because you know me, when I do these builds that have often been done by the community, so stuff like the Temple of Time, Hyrule Castle in a play scale, or I mean I haven't done it, but like Breath of the Wild Stables, Guardians, everything that is commonly done I want to do something different with, and that rings true here. We have some amazing Temple of Time mocks, such as the really detailed one that got to 10k on LEGO Ideas. It's really hyper detailed, fantastic. It's a perfect replica of the Breath of the Wild Temple. Then we have the MB Box Microscale Ocarina of One, which is in tan and black and recreates those details perfectly in that temple at a really nice scale. I knew I wanted to go big, but I didn't want to focus in on the hyper detail. I wanted to try and mimic that LEGO style that we've seen in a load of other builds, but also I wanted it to have a unique feature, and I thought, why not be able to switch between the two of them, but not just in a way where you have to rebuild it completely, or some of the details are there where you've got a mix of minifigures. I wanted that interior to be able to change from one to the other, and I think I've achieved that, because looking at this shot here, you would not know that you were in a Breath of the Wild shell of a temple, and I'm really, really happy with it turned out, and I think that's why and that's what makes me happy with this model, and why I can say that it stands on its own, is because it had that feature. And as I mentioned earlier, I promise you, this idea, I've had it since before the Deku Tree, before even the leaks in 2023. I have the receipts for that. I can show you the document one day, because crazy ideas. It's just crazy how a coincidence happens, that is. Not that I get credit for it, because obviously I didn't tell anyone, but not that I would either way. But yeah, it just is, it's a little unnerving that this also Ocarina of Time Breath of the Wild landscape model has actually been turned into a set in the form of the Deku Tree, basically. It's like, this is like sort of the second half of that in a way. Anyway, moving on, if we open the Door of Time, you can see straight through to the sword and the pedestal, which is another shot I really, really love. Not quite as impressive as those shadows that we had in the Breath of the Wild version, but I do really love how clean and different the interior looks here, and it really does stand out to me that you are able to get this duality between the models. So just wrapping up then, taking a look at the top here, you can see it is just a large model. All that dark orange goes across the roof really, really cleanly, and we have the little walk around section, so that if Link climbs up the ladder, which isn't present in this set, but if he was to climb up a ladder onto the roof, he's got place to walk around and then climb up the roof up to the spot where he meets the old man. Around the back, you can see, of course, the top of the tower is open for where the treasure chest and the old man would be. Again, not including this set. Another potential missed figure inclusion, especially since the king already exists and was included in Wave 2. You've got the details around the side of the towers, such as some snot techniques and making use of the new 1x2 arch, inverted arch I should call it, to be like the inverses of crenellations around the tops of the towers. And then the very tips of those go to dark bluish grey and black, as predicted. Around the back, it just looks really clean. That's what makes it different between the Breath of the Wild and the Ocarina version, is the Ocarina version is just such a clean model. There's no sort of damage, there's no sort of visual detail. It feels quite low poly, which aids it looking like an N64 building, despite it being the wrong shape, wrong colour, and having some of the incorrect details. I really like this look though, where it's kind of zoomed in from the front and you're kind of looking up at it in majesty. It reminds me of that shot from Ocarina where you're like approaching the front doors. You can see really the only blemish on it when it's in the Ocarina version are those two modified studs for where you attach the vines in the other version, and the windows are quite well realised. They've all got glass in on the front, apart from of course the smaller ones which have those bars in to represent some of the details, and then of course the ones off to the side which are hollow. There's nothing in those bell towers, they're not easily accessible, particularly on the left. This was because of the removable nature of that tower, but also there are no details in there in either version of the games. Yes, you could argue that's for Easter eggs, but this is definitely more of a display model. Yes, you have that fun feature of being able to change out the two types of temple, but it's not really like a hidden Easter egg one, and the park camp was already completely blown, so we just left it there. But yeah, lots of small ornate stuff, but really it's a pretty simple model. And then of course we've already talked about the entrance. We've got the Triforce above the door, making some great use of those new tile pieces, and I really like how indented this is. We've been using this Triforce design across so many pieces, and I'm glad that the entrance feels grand for this model. And down on the floor and all around the sides there are just a couple of little plants, only one or two, really not that many, and that is pretty much all there is to this model. So let us take a look at the figures. So first up, let's get the reuses out of the way. As I talked about earlier, this is Young Link. This is my designed one that was been using since wave 1 in Gomez layer, and then reappeared in this wave with slightly updated printing in the Iron Knuckle encounter. And he is just based off his Ocarina of Time version. Of course, we all know there's an official one that's better than this now, but that's not the point, because this is existing in like my own world basically, where that set hasn't been made. So we're still using my designs. I will not use the official ones. So no skirt here at all, just some dual molded legs, dual molded arms, and some simple printing, reusing the head mold that most of my links use, the one from wave 1, the same one that Scarred Sword used, so none of that particular parting, which makes the official one so special. But we don't only have Young Link, we have Adult Link, so this is so that you can recreate either whichever stage you're in with the Temple of Time. If it's in his Ocarina version, he can have pulled the sword or not. We're including the Hylian Shield and the normal Knight's Broadsword sword here, but the Master Sword is not included, only as that dark blue hilt is the only inclusion of it in this set. And he is the same figure that appeared in Escape from London Ranch in wave 3, so another reuse that would still be in print, so that's basically no new figures so far for this set. But now we get into the new ones. Here we have Ocarina of Time Zelda in her adult form. The hairpiece I realise is controversial. Once again, I've opted for an existing piece rather than one using ears. Yes, I could have used the new Rivendell elf mold. That might have worked better in medium nougat because it would have given us the elves and those more thinner braids, but I decided just to use the wavy hair for that Elizabeth Swan introduced, and it was in Pirates in 2013, I want to say. She has a dress piece with some simple printing. That darker purpley colour piece on her tabard doesn't really exist in LEGO, so I just used normal LEGO purple. We've got dark magenta and then lavender on the arms, and then a simple facial expression that isn't double-sided at all. Hair might be controversial, but I think it works well enough. It's not perfect, but when his things rarely are. This figure though, Ganondorf, is definitely perfect. I really love this figure. Not only does he have printing all around the legs and arms as befits a figure in a £400 set, but he's making use of the Doctor Strange cape recoloured in dark red, something that I'd really like to see them do if they tackle this Ganondorf. They could also use the new Thor cape that's just come out in the new Marvel sets this summer, but I prefer this one because it has the collar, it looks more dramatic and kind of replicates the shoulder armour. That being said, you could also use a shoulder armour piece and then just have the cape be fabric, or not include the cape at all. I don't know, it's up to designer's choice. Anyway, really great printing here. I actually really love this figure. And then olive green skin tone with the red recolor of the grip hook hair, something that appeared in an advent calendar I think before this set, back in like wave 2, but here it is officially in a real set. Next up we have Rauru, who's using the bold cap. He has got his long sleeves on, meaning he has orange hands, and he's using a dress piece. Again, really like the printing here. He's got a sort of stern face, no double-sided expression because the bold cap doesn't cover it, and just like the other sages, he has a 2x2 print of his medallion. Specifically, this needed to be included because in CMF Series 1 we had Darunia and Naboru, and then in CMF Series 2 we had Saria and Ruto, meaning he is the 5th of the 6 Ocarina of Time stages to be added, so I hope you guys collect those along the way, even though they're not real sets. And then finishing us off, we have Impa, who really doesn't make much sense to be here, but it's sort of the only other set I've got planned where she would fit with her Sage Medallion. And also, I didn't want these Sage Medallion collectibles to go on for too much longer, or else, like, if we're in Wave 4 now, they've already gone on for like 2 calendar years, which is about the same length of time it took us to get the LEGO Koopalings, seeing that they started appearing in 2021, and we only got the last one this summer in 2024. I didn't want this collectible wave to last that long, and if I waited until Kakariko, I felt it would just be too drawn out. So I thought we'd include the last two here. She has some simpler printing, her design is simpler, and we sort of toned down her design a little bit as well, just to bring it more in line with what I think LEGO might do. She's got her Sheikah necklace around her, and then a simple stern facial expression, and she's using an existing hairpiece, which is the Bodhi Rook one, which has the tie-up ponytail around the bottom back, here in white to recreate her look. She should probably have her eye makeup, but not on this figure. Okay, and that is all I have to show you for this Temple of Time. I've already gushed at length about why I think this model is different and what I wanted to do with it and why I wanted to strive for something unique. So I won't bore us all to death now. Instead, just leaving you with this last shot of all 4 of the D2Cs that we've done, the 18 plus sets that we have here. We have the life-size Hylian Shield, still the biggest set we've ever done, now shortly followed by this Temple of Time from Wave 2 Z016. Then we have the Wave 3 Z030, the Hyrule Botanical Collection, and the Z041, also from Wave 3, the Master Coke Bust. And now Temple of Time is joining them, and these are sort of the only ones up until this chronological point. But of course, as you guys know, Lookout Landing was also an 18 plus set, even though it really shouldn't be, and Clock Town will be joining it soon, the Wave 3 D2C that never got made. Look out for that one. I have 20 minifigures to draw, so there's a lot to do. But anyway, let me know what you thought of this Temple of Time down below. Let me know what you thought of its main feature in particular. I'm interested in what you think about the transformation and how this stacks up to other Temple of Times. Of course, it's never a competition. Other ones do a much better job at being accurate, but I like to think I brought something unique to the table. But let me know all your thoughts down below, and of course, I will see you again very, very soon for something different. I'm not going to reveal what custom set's next because honestly, I'm torn between 2 or 3 at the moment, but there will be one coming in very early September because we've got some special videos now leading up to the release of the first official LEGO Zelda set, also from Ocarina and Breath of the Wild, the Great Deku Tree. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you again very, very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.